Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Chill Like a Mother podcast. I am your host, Kayla Kuzar, and we are here with Ashley Gorekis today, who is an art therapist in Nelson, BC. She works mostly with children and youth, but we are here to talk about art therapy as something, as a very powerful tool for adults. And in my opinion, especially mothers who are looking to reconnect with themselves, because even 5 minutes makes a difference. So, welcome, Ashley. I'm so glad that you're here with me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor. And yeah, everyone listening, it's such an honor that you're here with us today, too.
We have a pseudo Instagram relationship. I just want to name that
Mhm.
for people that we have never met in real life. And but I feel like as Instagram does, I feel like I know you because I get a lot of value from your art therapy videos that I know as a business owner, you put so much tender love there into spreading the love of art therapy. And I just want to thank you for everything that you put out in the world and the energy and the capacity that that takes in your life.
Oh, thank you so much for honoring that. Yeah, it's a huge passion of mine to share it and make it tangible and make it bite-sized for people. And it's an incredible challenge to do that. And I'm so glad people are resonating with it and that we found each other too.
Yes. So the problem,
Hmm.
let's just name the elephant in the room. The problem that I hear from most of my clients is that they lose track of who they are. I think that can be said for anybody who goes through a big life transition, especially for parents. Um, and how how do you view creativity in some of those gap people?
Yeah. So creativity is part of our like essential essence, right? It's part of our deepest core self is creativity. Everything we're doing, it's not just visual arts, it's not just dancing or singing, it's everything we're doing, whether we're cooking or baking or we're looking at a landscape and just intertwining ourselves with the world is creativity. And we live in a society, and this is what I feel like this is the biggest problem right now. We live in a society where we're so on a fast track. Everything is fast. We have such big expectations on ourselves, our jobs, our families. There's just so much expectation on us. There's so little room to just slow down and to just dive into like little moments of creativity. And they're not just art, they're everything we do. So I feel like that's the big statement is that creativity is not just art, it can be art, but creativity is our entire life. And letting ourselves kind of like meld back into that can give us so much more connection and peace and nervous system regulation.
Mm.
And when we give ourselves that, we're giving our families that, our coworkers that, and we're sharing that love. So it's a really big piece I'm passionate about is helping folks get back to, yeah, noticing where creative energy wants to flow in life.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. And so I'm gonna name something that even I struggle with sometimes. I'm gonna get you to help me walk it back. So tell me about the myth that creativity is only for people who have time and or skill.
Yeah. It's probably the thing I hear the most. And having, yeah, I have an Instagram with lots of different followers from all sorts of places around the world and all different walks of life. That myth seems to be so potent and in like the front of all of our minds that, if we're sitting down to do art, it has to be an hour or it has to be a finished product or it has to be something that's based on a skill. Like I have to
Mm.
know how to use watercolor in order to do watercolor. It's the biggest myth and it's not our fault for believing that myth. It's really not. It's society. And it's just years and years and years of this ingrained sense that we have to be an artist in order to dive into creativity at all. And so dispelling the idea that we have to be an artist, but then also connecting with artist identity in a different capacity is where we find so much freedom. And freedom is found in the play. And it's so hard to play. Gosh. Yeah. If we let ourselves just settle down for even one moment and give ourselves like a discipline or the devotion to just give 1 minute to creativity a day, we can expand within that rigidity, you know, like giving ourselves a regimen allows us to expand within it. And then that can grow and making a little bit more space and time because we feel good after we do that. There's so many layers to this.
Yes, so many ways. And I completely agree with you because seriously, on the weekend, I had urge and be creative in form. Normally takes place like in my journal. I came up against that moment to do it. That was the tip for me. And I'm an expressive therapist. I know better. I know better. And I didn't sit down one time this weekend to do that thing, even though I spent more time about it than it would have actually taken to sit down and do the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. I totally agree. I myself have been going through a little bit of a creative block. And being in the spotlight with art and being a person that's trying to promote creativity and promote, yeah, like art making as a form of well-being, going through that myself, I can totally empathize with what you're going through there and just the actual mental capacity it takes to just think about, oh, like, should I go and make something or like I want to, but like I'm not going to. It takes way more effort than actually just sitting down and doing the creating and giving
Yes.
just the space and the time to do it and remembering that it only takes such a little pocket of time for our nervous system to come down and that our alpha brainwaves start turning on. And even if it's just 5 minutes, it's an expansive pocket. You know, that 5 minutes isn't taking up our day. It's 5 minutes expanding into a lot less stress over the day. Yeah.
Mm. Yes, absolutely. And I feel like it's a similar experience to when I sit down and meditate. And and by sit down and meditate, sometimes I also mean like while I'm in the shower or walking the dog. I do a lot of like movement-based meditation as an ADHD person. A quiet room is not space, even though I like there, but creativity gives me that same like physical, that like visceral experience of sitting down to meditate.
Yeah. But I bet it only gives you that visceral experience when you're releasing like perfectionism and releasing pressure, right? Because when we start and sit down for creativity and we have these pressures on ourselves that we're going to make a finished piece of art, like then it's not the same, right? I bet I bet that's the experience, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. When I have something in mind, and my clients experience this too, I do a lot of like guided visualizations in my work with my clients, and because almost all of them say they need like a lead in. They need like I can't just be like, so what would you look like if you were a butterfly? They would be like, I. So, um, the releasing the perfection when I sit down to create something, like I have something in mind, it almost never goes in that direction anyway, because I get into that flow state and into that like that groove of like, oh, I wonder what this would do. Oh, I wonder what this color would do. And oh, I've got glue on my fingers. And now what am I going to do with all this? And so it really is a muscle that I think I've stretched over the last 7 years, and even longer. But as a trained expressive arts therapist integrating this into my life, I have found that even when I sit down and I think about creating something, it never ends up going in that direction because that muscle is so well stretched of I don't have to be perfect at this, or it doesn't have to look like the gray cloud that you thought it was going to.
Yeah, yeah. And for the folks that are listening, like this is an affirmation, right? That like even trained art therapists and expressive art therapists go through this same motion of feeling the pressure sometimes or feeling the need for perfectionism, and that it is such a muscle. Like I've been using that term a lot lately, Kayla, like this idea that like just like we go to the gym or we start a new like health regimen in our life or our physical health, we have to keep up the habits for creativity in our life too and for like those moments of creativity and like having a consistent returning to them and a consistent like intention with them and a consistent passion with them. Otherwise, we don't stick to things. Like you don't stick to going to the gym at 5 a.m. if you don't have fun with it. So it's about, yeah, when we try to do the same thing with creativity, because we know it's good for us. We know
Yes.
when we get into the flow state, we feel amazing, we feel proud, we learn something about ourselves. But if we're not allowing ourselves to get to that place and also have the like self-compassion that some days it's just not going to get there. And some days we make something that's really frustrating to ourselves. Or some days we sit in the park looking at the birds and wanting to have this moment of calm and we just can't get there. And then our timer goes off and we got to go, pick up the kids or go back to work or whatever it is. And the self-compassion that not every day is going to be perfect. And it's an affirmation because, yeah, art therapists and expressive art therapists go through this too. And it's about consistency, coming back to that intention, coming back to yourself. It's a big thing. Yeah, thinking about a lot lately.
Yes. Yes. And so for those who don't know, who are, still hanging with us, what happens to the brain, to the body, to the system when someone dedicates just 5 minutes to a simple act of creativity, whether that's doodling or coloring or writing or just literally letting the mind wander for a minute? What happens to the system when they allow that 5 minutes?
Yeah, to put it into the most simple terms I can think of, right? I like to think of it like a stoplight. Our nervous system, like red and yellow and green, we want to be in the green state more often in our life. That's the time our ventral vagal nervous system is turned on. We're able to make social connections. We're able to play. We feel like ourselves. And it's okay to not be in the green all the time. A healthy nervous system is actually the ability to dip into the yellow and dip into the red and be able to come back down. And so having a flexible nervous system. And so when we're making art, whether we're in the red, like we're in fight or flight or a functional freeze, lots of folks are in functional freeze in our day-to-day life. We're kind of going through the motions, taking time to sit and let that like 5 minutes. It just has to be, it could be one, but it could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, whatever feels right in your schedule. Our brain waves begin to change when we're not thinking about the art and we're taking body up processing. So when our body is actually starting to move, I'm taking a marker and I'm making doodles and I'm using the materials as a guide, like maybe moving this slowly or just noticing how a chalk pastel feels more soft in my hands and just taking moments to notice. It pulls our brain waves into alpha. And that's that state that when people say they're meditating and they have these incredible visions and this incredible sense of calm, it's the same state that we can achieve through creation and through visual art. And all it takes is a few moments. It's really special.
Uh, it is so special. And I have the Headspace app. If anybody has paid for the Headspace subscription, if you go into the videos, they have like these 1 minute, 1.5 minute videos. And there's this one that describes the like not every meditation is going to feel the same. And when you have a air quotes a bad meditation, it makes you feel like you don't want to do it again, like it's the meditation's fault, like it didn't get you where you wanted to go. And it talks about like beginning again and starting again. Just because it was bad yesterday or you didn't get into that flow state yesterday doesn't mean that it's not worth pursuing again. And that really sticks with me, especially when considering creativity in the context of a motherhood, because I think sometimes I can sit down with my creativity, my journal, my art journal, or even just like a meander through the park, thinking that it's going to give me exactly what I need. And then when it doesn't, I'm mad about it, right? I'm like, I wasted this 20 minutes, the only 20 minutes that I have for the next 30 days, let's say, for me to like actually sit down and do something for me. I'm like, I'm mad at the process. And so I think there's also a distinction that I've had to make between that nervous system regulation being beneficial versus the benefit that I thought it would bring. Cause I think I can like discount the like, I did get there, I did get into the flow state or I did do the thing or I honored an urge. And like, that's enough to bring that nervous system down a notch, even if the process made me mad or the outcome wasn't what I wanted it to be. Like maybe it took me somewhere that was like even more triggering than the thing that I started with. And so there can be this like tug and pull between that nervous system regulation and then my perception of how I just spent my time.
Mm. Yes, exactly. Hey, and I'm of the opinion it's really important to remember like the process is more important than the outcome. And so I say this to folks, whether they're in my art therapy sessions 1-to-1 or in my groups or doing things online and we're just in conversation. It's not always about having like a finished piece of art to hang up on the wall and put it in a frame. So taking that 5 minutes and just, you didn't get to the place you wanted to, but the process was there and like honoring yourself that like you took that time for yourself. And that is the most important thing. And sometimes too, right? Like when we experience something more dark or something more triggering through the process, it's about the integration. Hey, like for the rest of the day, noticing, wow, like that anger really showed up in me. And I really don't want it to show up for the rest of the day. So how can I give it the most space, as 1 minute walking back to my car here from the bench where I was doing the doodle in the park, how can I give it the most space it needs, ask it what it's here for, and then shift it for the rest of the day and maybe notice when anger is trying to creep up or whatever emotion it is, whatever darker emotion or challenging emotion it is, and try to integrate it, not dispel that idea that you got frustrated from making art, but yeah, I got frustrated from making art. And maybe that's eliciting something that I'm also frustrated in my life about. I'm frustrated that I can't get this done or that done, right? And noticing it. And this
Yeah.
will teach you something too, just as much as a beautiful nervous system regulation piece of art would do. And having
Yes.
self-compassion for yourself in the process.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a memorable moment that's coming to mind. I dropped my son off at a birthday party at a family's house that we'd never been before, and they were going to be outside, and it was summertime, and they were going to be in the pool. So I was like, okay, it's all good, like
Mhm.
parents seem capable. They're going to be in the pool. There's lots of kids. They're not going to be in the house running around and, all these things, getting more revved up than what he needs. And I got home and I was vibrating. The intrusive thoughts started to come in around like, what if these parents suck and they're not supervising, the pool party, or like what if just like all the things, all of the worst case scenarios possible. But I also still had my littlest one with me. So it was like I kind of had to pull it together, right? It's like I can't succumb to the intrusive thoughts, but I also need to like be like, hey, yeah, you're there. This is a really good red flag, right? Like maybe you feel like you should have talked with the parent more. Like this is like information gathering, right? Like,
Mhm.
and so I sat down, I put my littlest one in front of the TV and I sat down and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like make a spontaneous collage. All of the images that like pop out at me from the magazines, I'm just gonna rip them out. It's no surprise that they were all water images. One that included a crocodile and a tidal wave and all
Mhm.
like they were fun. Like they were fun images, but they were also like I knew that they were like the darkness of it was coming through, right? And then I have this old vintage Wizard of Oz books, and so I like to like cut the words out of because they're like magical and there's lots of like metaphor in them. And so anyway, I was like making this poem and I wasn't getting to the solution fast enough, right? It was like
Mhm.
I wanted the calming feeling and I wanted the words, the epiphany, the aha moment to like jump out at me and release me from the intrusive thoughts, right? In the time that it took for my youngest to watch his TV show, and it wasn't happening. And I vividly remember standing up from the table. I was also like double doing this. I was recording myself thinking that I would turn this into some social media content, which also added the cloud of like thing that I was trying to get to. And then I remember standing up and my youngest looked at me and he was like, "Mommy, are you done?" And I was like, "No, I'm not, but I need to like walk away from this." And so I stood up, I did a lap around the kitchen, grabbed some water, got a snack, sat down with him for a minute, and then I was able to come back to it in a way that felt like it served me. And once I had that pause button, that perspective, I came back to it and it was easier, or it had a different feeling about it. And so it's interesting that as an expressive arts therapist, and like you already named, as an art therapist, we also go through these moments where like creativity isn't straightforward and it doesn't always give us the result that we're looking for. And so if people are currently making art, they are currently like leaned into that and it's not giving them what they need. What do you suggest as an art therapist to them?
Yeah. It's layered, right? I have a really big passion for the neuroscience aspect behind the art therapy. So my thesis and my research was all based on the interrelation of neuroscience and like what's happening in our brain and our body. And sometimes if we are not getting what we're needing from it, we have just like you did, taking a step back and noticing what part of our body are we in? Are we in our thinking mind or rational mind? Are we having pressures or any kind of sense of like perfectionism that this needs to be done or we need to have an answer? Or are we allowing flow in whatever shape or form it turns into from that safer part of our nervous system? Are we feeling like the art in or the making is really coming from a tense body, or is it coming from something more open and more fluid and more playful or not? And just taking a step back and where are you coming from in the making right now? And is this serving you right now? Asking yourself, is this serving you right now? Another big piece there is noticing, hmm, yeah, like noticing if we're in a story as well. So not everyone agrees with this, but there is Harvard brain science around the idea that sometimes we can get really caught up in a story and sometimes that can actually guide what we feel are our emotions and like we feel like we're really deep into something. But if we take a step back and wonder, okay, is this part of a narrative that I'm making up or like I'm diving too far into this that no longer serves me. Like I'm diving into my worry or I'm diving into my fear. I can get really caught in that. And then that can really create a block in the art or it can bring up things that aren't meant to be brought up right now. Maybe we just need to take a step back and notice, yeah, you know what? I am thinking about grief and I really am caught up in the unexpressed love right now. And that is making this day-to-day thing way harder. And just noticing that and coming back and stepping out of it and then returning to the art. That's a big thing I've learned over the last few years. It's just noticing our brain and our body, our stories and our emotions, all as separate but intertwined and just like hopscotch, like take a little hop forward and notice where if you're over there or notice if you're over there. Yeah.
Hmm. I felt my body have like a whole release when you said that. Like,
Mhm.
is this serving you or is this part of a story? Is this part of a narrative? I work with a sentence stem a lot of I'm telling myself is. And sometimes that story is rooted in some fact. We all together, right? And so if your partner or your or whatever behaved in this particular way, you're going to it the next time. And so it's like the story I'm telling myself is dot dot dot. And I use that a lot as like a starting place in my therapy with people because sometimes it is rooted in fact, and sometimes we need a place to process that. And other times it is like this total fictitious story that we have spun and woven and projected, and now we through this like story lens, and it can be really powerful, like you just said, to ask the question of like, is this serving me?
Mhm. Yeah, I
Is yeah,
appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I think some of the most amazing pieces of being a professional expressive arts therapist, and you can echo this, is I love working with people because it deepens the experience, right? Sometimes people find me because they're already engaged in a creative practice or they're looking for a creative outlet. And other people find me because of the motherhood piece and the art comes as a surprise. So what I love about making space for this is that container to explore emotions with someone who's witnessing it, who can mirror back things, who can simply just like repeat what you just said and like give it back to you in a different way than maybe you would have thought it. What are some of your like top three things that you love about the benefit of working with people through art therapy?
Yeah, I echo all those statements. I think number one, first and foremost, is the relationship. And it's seeing yourself in another, having someone exactly like see a part of you that maybe you're not seeing, a beautiful part of you, maybe a part that like you're abandoning, and having it be brought into the room through the relationship with someone who's holding authentic space for you, authentic space for your process, authentic space for your art and for your life, and holding you holistically. I think that's the most amazing thing about working with someone on a one-to-one level or in a small group setting with an expressive arts therapist or an art therapist. And then, yeah, like trickling out like those layers of just participating in therapeutic art groups and just being in a container where you're seeing yourself through others and there's universality and maybe there's insights from other people's art that relate to you. And you leave a group setting, whether it's online or in person, and you say, wow, like I didn't think about that. And then, yeah, I guess number three, giving yourself an opportunity to make art. Yeah, because we don't get enough of that.
No, no, we do not get enough of that. And so what's your go-to kind of like real simple three-step process to get in the zone of seeing that opportunity and like grabbing onto it?
Yeah, like if you're not able to create an experience where you're working one-to-one with a therapist or doing a group, if it's on your own, I would say my go-to thing would be to get intentional about it. So carving out, like we have to carve it out. 5 minutes in the morning, like whilst you're having your coffee, like it has to be a double stack situation. So be it. That's sometimes what we have to do in our busy lives and also finding inspiration. So maybe it's as simple as going to the dollar store and picking out a brand new pack of pens, a really nice brand new Sharpie that you're excited to use. And yeah, getting like closer to yourself through the self-compassion. So giving yourself compassion for whatever shows up at any time that you create the art, whether it's good, bad, doodle, you didn't make any art while you sat down, having self-compassion. I think those are the biggest pieces there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, amazing, Ashley. I have loved this conversation and how we moved from how creativity can be practiced in as little as 5 minutes and doesn't require any artistic skill, and how these simple acts of creativity can regulate the nervous system and bring about that alpha brainwave state that you talked about. That's so similar to meditation, and how that opportunity, seeing the opportunity and maybe double stacking it around the consistency and showing up just for a few minutes each day can really help people connect with themselves in a deeper way. And like you so generously labeled those ways that change the process when you're working one-on-one with someone professional, and that deeper emotional processing that can come from that experience. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your time and yourself with us today. And I really appreciate your time and everything that you share in the online space and with your people one-on-one.
Thank you so much. Yeah, what a pleasure to be here. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to speak on something I'm so passionate about and share this with folks who may just be diving in or maybe you're fully swimming in it. But it's great to just rejuvenate all of our passion for this and our passions, our well-being, and bringing more joy and more results to our lives. And yeah, like I invite folks to take 5 minutes today. Maybe it's just 4 minutes. Don't even bring pressure on yourself that it's 5 minutes minutes while you have an afternoon tea, like, or while you, I don't know, like, wherever you can find 4 minutes. And just take a moment to, you can just just notice your space. Just notice the colors. Maybe just notice the shapes. Maybe just start there and then see where that leads you with a visual arts or creative arts practice after that.